Hey there, it's me, Eden. If you are new to the channel, then please subscribe to my channel and visit my Patreon page for early access. Link in the comment, thanks. This is a bitch. Really a bitch. Sarah Beth was usually squeamish about using even such mild language, but she was depressed and angry. She was just starting to get where she could walk again, and the ugly C word was about to re-enter her life. Chemotherapy. Her hair had started growing out, and it was nearly an inch long. Although she wore her wig to school, she didn't mind it if people saw her crew cut look around home. But it was going to be back to bald in a few weeks. And back to barfy. This round promised not to be so bad. It wouldn't be as potent a combination of drugs, so the side effects wouldn't be as awful. She could receive it as an outpatient at the local hospital, instead of going back to the children's hospital 90 miles away. She wouldn't have to miss school, except for time lost for feeling yucky, since the hospital had already scheduled her for late afternoon appointments. The treatment was to keep the cancer out of her system, not to stop cancer that was already there. But it still would be no fun. And the worst thing about it is that you can't take me, Annie, she pouted as she brushed her short hair. I hadn't planned on being Annie that afternoon, but she found this maroon party dress that Julie hadn't taken to school, and wanted to see how it would look on me. Not too bad, actually. Mark can take you, though, I replied, as I sorted through her lipsticks to find one that would go with the maroon dress. I mean, it's great that they scheduled things so your mom can take you after she gets off work, but I want to be there, too, as Mark, I mean. But Mark, you're spending all your time taking care of me. I'm not sure it's healthy for you and for me to have my fiancé be my nurse all the time. Your love might just become, well, just a sense of responsibility. You have a life and you're not living it. I nodded. In a way, I had to agree with her. I love being with you anytime, anyway, anyhow, I said. But you might be right. I guess it might not be the best thing for either of us for me to be right on top of you all the time. I started to blush. It would be fine for you to be on top of me one of these days, Mark, she giggled. But we sort of promised that we'd try to wait. We heard the back door close. And your mom's coming in from the garden, anyway. But, back to our previous discussion. On nice days when you think you'll be okay, at the hospital without me, I'll go biking or whatever. But I might come and hang around from time to time, if it's okay, as Mark, that is. If people around here found out my secret identity as Super Annie, the forces of evil might triumph. I did a Superman, Superwoman, pose as much as the party dress would permit, and she giggled again. The Saturday after her first week of chemo treatments, she felt good and insisted that we go shopping to improve Annie's fall wardrobe. But I thought that Annie wasn't supposed to be seen around town, I protested. You can come as Mark. You're about Annie's size, I think, she giggled, and I promise that you won't have to try anything on. We'll just pretend we're looking for stuff for Julie. So we go to the biggest thrift store in town, and I, without much acting, look like the pained, bored boyfriend waiting for his teenaged girlfriend while she power shops. I hoped that the clerk didn't notice much when she would lift blouses and skirts off the rack, hold them in my general direction, and say, Unfortunately, the clerk, an older lady with her back in a bun and a sensible dress, was looking right at us when Sarah Beth laid right up to my chest a pair of lilac twill bib overalls, with embroidered flowers on the bib. I stepped back. Sarah, I said. Sarah saw the clerk and grinned. I'm sorry, she said. I'm shopping for my sister and my boyfriend is just her size. Well, not just her size, if you know what I mean, as she made straight up and down motions with her hands to illustrate my boyish figure. I didn't mean to embarrass you, or him. The clerk smiled and said it was okay. After the clerk walked away, she whispered, "Annie, you know how you love the Tigger bib shortalls. You need something informal to replace them for the fall and winter, don't you?" I whispered back, "I'm sorry, Sarah. Those just don't grab me like Tigger did." We did leave with 2 long-sleeved blouses of a smooth, silky material. One had autumn leaves on it, and the other was a solid color that Sarah described as taupe. At her home later, she showed me a pair of black silky pants that Julie had left. They bulged out loosely toward the bottom before they came back in to form cuffs just above the ankles. She asked me to try them on, and try on each blouse with them. I didn't have to go the full makeup route, she just wanted to see how they looked. They looked fine, although maybe a little old for Annie, and the soft, smooth material felt great on my skin. I was generally comfortable in women's clothes, but I rarely felt excited. This could get me aroused. Sarah asked how I like them. I like them fine, Sarah, they look good and feel great. But I thought that I was just going to be Annie around the house here. Why do I need a new wardrobe? I asked, glancing at myself again in the mirror. Sarah looked incredibly sad. Because Annie will need something more seasonal to wear to Cameron, besides the white blouse and maroon skirt that Mrs. C asked you to wear. These are the kind of clothes that will be appropriate when the time comes. When the time comes. She was referring to Roger. The day before, as we had every Friday afternoon for the past several weeks, we had called collect, at Mrs. C's invitation, to talk with Roger. He and his mom listened over a speakerphone. He was totally bedfast and helpless, his mother told us. She still thought that he understood us, and that he seemed content and happy when we talked to him, and less agitated the rest of the day. He wasn't on life support except for 4 fluids, and the doctors didn't give him many more weeks. We had promised to come for his funeral, and Mrs. C had promised to provide the transportation to get us there. On a Saturday morning about the middle of October, Sarah called and asked me to come over. Julie had come home the night before, and wanted to talk with all of us, nothing earth-shaking, she said. She just felt that since I was family now, or almost, that I might like to hear, along with Sarah and their mom, how things were going at college. She also had an invitation for us. That part one couldn't figure out. She wasn't going steady, so it must not be a wedding invitation. "Hi, Mark, come on in." Julie greeted me on the step. She looked lean, happy, and fit. Her blonde hair was even more curly than usual, so she must have gotten a perm since I saw her last. It made me remember the bleach and dye job and perm that I received 4 months ago that had transformed my straight brown hair into a clone of her blonde bubble. The 4 of us made ourselves comfortable in the living room. Mr. Holding was driving his semi-rig somewhere in Pennsylvania. I lazily scratched Mr. Jones behind the ears as he plopped his big head on my lap. "Okay, I'm leading you on." Mr. Jones is their old golden lab mix dog named for a 3rd-grade teacher for forgotten reasons. He grunted in appreciation as Julie gave us the lowdown on life in the athletic wing of the women's dorm at Westview College, her cross-country running that had kept her on campus most weekends and helped get her in shape for basketball, her scholarship sport, and sly descriptions of her professors and the courses they taught. Her happiness made me happy, because my becoming Annie for the summer had freed the way for her to go to college. Otherwise, she would have been taking a nail tech course at the local beauty college and working at her friend's nail parlor, the same place where my long blue nails had become my 6-week companions. Julie reached into a bag and pulled out 2 long-sleeve t-shirts with Westview printed down the arms. Mine had a picture of Tigger on the front, and Sarah's had Piglet. "These are unisex, Mark, so Annie can wear the Tigger shirt, too. The color will look great with a denim skirt." Evidently, the family had kept her up to date that Annie still came around from time to time. "Now for the invitation," she said. I want the three of you to be my guests on campus over the Halloween weekend. Oh. Even before Annie had come along, I had agreed to let the girls dress me up as a female on Halloween. I had hoped that with Julie being away at college, they would have forgotten. It's a parents' and prospective students' weekend. My first freshman women's basketball game is late Thursday afternoon, and I'll be starting at guard. I'll also be on the bench but may get to play a little during the varsity game that evening. Friday evening, the Women's Athletic Association is having its own Halloween party, and on Saturday there will be lots of fun booths and activities. You can go to church with me up there Sunday, and then head home. Mrs. Holding looked concerned. That would be great, honey. I'd love to come watch you play in your first game there. But it sounds a bit expensive, with motel rooms and all, and Sarah Beth and Mark would miss school. Julie smiled. She had done her homework. College visits are fully excused absences for high school seniors, she explained. I know that you two are planning to go to the university, she said, looking at us, but you can still come and see what Westview has to offer. And as for lodging, I've already signed you up for a guest room in the athletic wing. My brow furrowed. The guest room in the athletic wing of the women's dorm. Halloween. Is it really Mark that you're inviting? I asked. Sarah giggled. I had the feeling I was being set up again, as this pair had done so often in the past. You're right, Mark, Julie said. I do hope that Annie will come. If you want to come as yourself, you are invited also, but you'll also have to stay off campus at a motel. And your Halloween costume won't be nearly as much fun. I suppose you have the costume all planned out, too, I muttered. I do, and I think you'll enjoy it a lot. It's very appropriate. And Sarah Beth's costume will work with it really well. It's nothing embarrassing or cheap. But I'm not going to tell you what it is. Trust me. Sarah Beth nodded at me. Evidently, she had already agreed to this plan. I guess that I trusted you when I became Annie, and that worked out okay, I said to Julie. All right. If it's okay, with my folks to go with you that weekend, I'll go. But at Hope Haven, I was supposed to be Annie Holding. Won't there be people there that know you only have one sister? You'll be Annie Jansen, Julie explained. Your own imaginary sister. I promise you that I haven't told anyone at college, even my best friend, how you as Mark became Annie last summer. I have, however, told them how Annie Jansen, my bicycling buddy, saved my neck by taking my place at Hope Haven. That's part of the reason I asked you to do this, actually. They were impressed, and asked if they could meet you, Annie, someday. I guess that'll work, I said. But what if I don't get into the PT program at the university? Westview was my second choice as a school. This could get really confusing, if I visit there as Annie and want to come later as Mark. I don't see why that should be a problem. We'll just say that there's a strong family resemblance between you and your sister, and that she ran off with a carnival or something, Julie said. Annie wouldn't run off with a carnival, I protested. But okay, you win, as usual. I'll go as Annie. Julie smiled and pulled something else out of the bag. It was another Westview Women Power tee like she had given us last summer, this one white with lavender silhouettes of woman athletes on it. But when she turned it over, it had Annie Jansen printed across the back. Of course, there was another one for Sarah with her name on it, too. Julie doesn't do things on the spur of the moment. She plans them out like a military campaign. I took the shirt and waved it above my head as a white flag of surrender. Lots of guys I knew would love to spend a weekend in a women's dorm. But not many would want to do it in the outfits, makeup, and wig that I would be wearing, nor would they want to do it staying with their future mother-in-law. Oh, well. I would look resigned. I would sigh a lot. I wouldn't let them know that it sounded like fun. Please subscribe for the next part. And visit my Patreon page for early access.